Welcome to Success in Motion. Join us as we dive deep with top leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals, uncovering strategies to grow, scale, and succeed.
Welcome back to the Success in Motion podcast. Today we have Geoff Seow with us. Now, Geoff is a life and business coach with the goal of helping millennials create profitable businesses. So, Geoff, we appreciate having you on here today with us.
Thanks for having me on, Alex. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Geoff, go ahead and give us a quick snapshot of your business and what you're working on right now.
Right, so my business is basically helping millennials or people slightly out of that age range, basically one, leave their 9 to 5 career and create a business, preferably an online business, or if they have already created some kind of online business, helping them make it profitable. So understanding how to do their lead gen, how to convert clients, how to market themselves and create content. In
That's
terms of what
all.
I'm working on right now, it's continuing to develop my own coaching style. Basically, I want to open up group coaching in a few months. And on top of that as well, I want to be able to release my own book. I've been working on a book for the past year, and that's going to be released shortly within the next 2 months. So that's what I'm looking forward to at this present moment.
That's really awesome. Now, I know there's a lot of competition in kind of the online coaching space. I've heard a lot of online coaches start up. So how did you get into it and what kind of sets you apart?
I got into it about almost 4 years ago in 2021 during COVID, and I got into it preferably as a life coach at the time because I was working in a clinical career doing clinical research. And at the time, I wanted to be able to help people basically find out what they wanted to do with their life, the same way that I had discovered what I wanted to do. Life coaching had a lot to do with social psychology and neuro-linguistic programming, which made me really interested. So I wanted to help people in the same manner. And sorry, I forgot your second question there, Alex.
Yeah, and then what kind of sets you apart? Because again, there's a lot of competition there in the coaching space.
A couple of things. One, I believe like the amount of time that I've been in the industry as well. And two, the way that I basically create content and put myself out there, and the way that I provide value to my clients as well. Because I've been across the coaching industry for the past 3.5 years, I've coached over 100 clients across the world, independently for myself and as a contractor for other companies. And I've been able to actually learn a lot that allows me to help clients with many different obstacles and problems.
That's awesome. And so it sounds like you kind of come back from that clinical research background. And what have you found to be easy that maybe some other people might find challenging?
I think what I find to be easy is how to relate to people across a whole bunch of different problems because I have a lot of experience in my own personal life with the things that I've done, but I also have a lot of experience working with different clients and seeing their problems. So when someone comes to me requiring help with their business, so how do they convert clients, or someone comes to me trying to figure out what it is they want to do with their life or what type of business they want to open, it's very easy for me to understand and diagnose exactly what it is they're struggling with. So what are your obstacles and how can you overcome it? Because when you've walked through the path that someone else is struggling with right now, they can't see what lies ahead. But when you've already been down that path, you're able to look back and tell them, okay, like if you do this, you make this micro adjustment, you do it this way, you do it that way, you can make quick changes and adaptations that help you find success a lot quicker rather than trying to stumble across the process like I did for many years before I found out what I was doing.
That's awesome. So, what would you say has been one of the biggest things you kind of find yourself repeating a lot with people, or what's one thing that you're constantly helping them with?
Mainly it's their own mindset. And this is why I'm a big fan of saying that like all coaching comes back to life coaching. It doesn't matter if you do business coaching or career coaching or whatever it is. It's always about helping an individual overcome their own personal blocks, their own personal obstacles. So the major things that I notice with a lot of my clients or anyone that signs up for a strategy call, it is lack of confidence, unsure of what the future holds. There's some kind of fear about putting themselves out there or doing something new or taking risk. It's all within their own mind. And because their mind is geared towards a sense of failure, they're expecting things to not work out. It's very easy for them to not take the required steps. And I see this constantly over and over again, even for established clients that I've had for over 2 years. Every now and again, we have a session where we're just talking about their mental obstacles because they're unable to complete a certain task or do things a certain way because in their own mind they don't believe that they're capable of doing it.
Yeah. And I know that's definitely a big thing. If you have the mindset you're not going to do it, you just don't do it. So, what have you found kind of big ways to help them shift within that mindset?
The greatest thing I can find is to actually use coaching tools and try to relate my own experience as well. So, for example, if somebody is struggling with the fear of putting themselves out there, which is a major thing, right? As we know in today's age, 2025, you have to produce content if you have an online business, especially if you provide a service. If you're just building a website and waiting for people to find you, that's never going to work. You have to be actively doing things to create leads, to create established leads, right? So what I basically do is to help them overcome this particular obstacle is to understand why it is they are afraid of this particular thing. Because for everyone's fear, there is a reason to their fear. We need to understand the root cause. So, for example, if one is afraid of putting themselves out there, perhaps they've been burned before in the past, or maybe they have a mindset that thinks that they're entitled to something. We need to find the problem, and when we have the problem, we can diagnose it and we can solve it. And we solve it by helping them understand that this is the thing that needs to happen, and the only roadblock that's stopping you from making it happen is yourself. And if it's yourself, then something can actually be done. It's kind of empowering the individual, but also helping them realize that the obstacle is something that they are creating. And if they want for it to be a success, there is a clear roadmap. It's more about just getting out of their own way and doing the things required.
Absolutely. And, it's definitely a very important thing to understand that cause and then again, change it up like you were saying. I love that. So, if someone listening now is wanting to get better at online coaching or they're wanting to get into that industry, what tips or suggestions would you have for them?
I think the first thing is to understand your intention of why you want to be a coach in the first place. A lot of people enter into this industry thinking it's free money because you can come into this industry without a lot of qualifications. In fact, a lot of coaches don't have qualifications. They just come in and they say, okay, I'm just going to coach because I've done X, Y, or Z, which you can do. But I think on top of that as well, you need to have a certain level of pedigree. So you need to understand why it is you want to coach people for a certain reason. And I think that's very important. That's why a lot of coaches, they rise up, they start creating content, and you might see them, and then within 6 months to a year, they'll disappear because their only intention was to make money as a business. Coaching as an industry is very different to other industries. So, like for example, other industries, you might market yourself with an ad if you're selling a product, or if you're selling a service, you might just market yourself with an ad. But with coaching, it doesn't matter how many ads you run, you're never going to connect to your audience. The only way to connect to your audience is to build relationships. And the only way to build relationships is to try to understand people and have a general knack and a love of talking to other people and understanding their problems. And if you can provide value to them and solve their problems. But a lot of people don't recognize this. And as a result, they enter the coaching industry, they create content about personal development or business or whatever it is, and they burn out. So understand your intention of why you want to be a coach and recognize that whether it's suited to your skills, because if you're not social or you don't want to build relationships, it can be very hard to prosper in this industry.
Absolutely. So that makes me curious. What was your why? What's your why behind wanting to be a coach?
That's a good question. My why behind wanting to be a coach was because a long time ago, had a problem with drugs and alcohol in my life. Even though I went down the academic route and things like that in my personal life, I struggled a lot with addiction. And even though I got sober, when I got sober a couple of years before I started coaching, my initial intention was to help drug addicts become sober. That was my initial intention. Unfortunately, that didn't work out very well because helping drug addicts become sober is a very personal choice, and they need to go through therapy and different things like that. But when I left my career, I moved to Melbourne, I left and I moved to the other side of Australia. My initial intent was to coach face to face, but I arrived at Melbourne at the peak of COVID. So I had no choice but to actually create an online business so that I could talk to people virtually as I was locked down in Melbourne for a very long time. And in this process, I began to realize, okay, if I can't help people become sober per se, maybe I can help them find their purpose so that they can choose to become sober. And that's where I initially started off as a life coach, helping people discover what they want to do with their life, how they can become more confident, how they can realize their goals and actually create a strategy to achieve it. So that was my initial intention. But across the years, I've gained a lot of experience doing life coaching, and I realized that life coaching can be translated into business coaching as well. And most of my clients now are purely business coaching focused because that's who I seem to attract.
Yeah. That sounds like quite the journey and a lot of pivots there as you were going throughout. What would you say has been one of the kind of your biggest challenges or struggles as you've figured out your path?
Oh, that's a lot of things. Initially, there's two ways I would put that. Is when you become an entrepreneur, you have your natural struggles. So, like for example, you might struggle to sign clients or to create income flow. Like for the first 6 months of my business in Melbourne, because I had left my job, I had no income and I couldn't sign a client. I was really panicking for 6 months, and I was living in a very expensive part of Melbourne. So there was a lot of internal struggle, and the fact I thought that, okay, this is a failure. This is a failure. The fear of actually not making it a success for those first 6 months was quite terrible for me. And it created a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. So as an entrepreneur, you begin to learn how to battle your own fears in your own mind and realizing that you can be confident in that process. The next thing as well in terms of being an entrepreneur is it drives you to become better. So the more that you go through the process and the more that you learn, the more you realize that life is not just about, okay, making money. That's part of it. You need money to help you move in a certain direction. But when you start to create cash flow, you realize that you can do more with your life than you could ever as an employee. So, for example, in 2023, I made the decision to be a digital nomad. And basically, I just picked up my laptop, kept working, and traveled through Asia for a couple of months. Then I did it again last year. I went and trained in Japan doing Kung Fu while I worked. And at the same time, I went and trained Muay Thai in Thailand. I went to Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh. I traveled across Asia and Malaysia and Singapore. And I've been able to do this purely because of my business. And I don't use my business just as a way of, oh, I want to do this, but it's a way that my business allows me to do this. So as an entrepreneur, we have many stages we go through, but the main things that we face are ourselves. And when we begin to believe in ourselves, we improve our ability to make income. And when we improve our ability to make income, we can choose the lifestyle we want. We're not tethered to anything.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, as you grow that income, as you make that success, you get a lot more options. And that actually brings me to the next thing I want to talk about. I know a lot of people are looking towards the future and looking at, okay, I've created my business, and they're looking either towards retirement or how to create passive income or something to help supplement them down the road. What are your thoughts about either that creating that passive income?
I think it's pretty crucial to create passive income because if one does not create passive income, they're always going to be in a feast or famine cycle. I mean, it depends how good your lead gen is, or it depends how good your ability to close clients is. But ultimately, you're going to be at the mercy of the general swing of the year. So, like for example, for most people, December and January might be quite a quiet month, and then it would pick up for the rest, especially December because it winds down for Christmas. But if you have passive income, it doesn't really matter how the market is changing. You're always going to be able to create money on the side. So, for example, just a few things I can suggest is creating maybe digital products. So, for example, my book that's going to be coming out in 2 months, or for example, an online course that I've created. There's also buying assets. So I think it's really important to buy assets, such as, for example, stocks. That's my favorite thing for the moment. I've been investing in stocks for the past 5 years, right? So when we invest and we actually build an asset portfolio and we do things to increase our cash flow without us actively doing anything, it allows us to have a sense of freedom. We're not continuously tethered to the idea that we have to work like crazy to make money because we can make money on the side as well.
Mhm. And I love that. And I also love how you kind of emphasized how your book can be a source of passive income as well. It's not just the typical things we think of like real estate or stocks or bonds. It can also be things like the books or other things that you get that are going to constantly bring in income as well. So thanks for pointing that out. Now, as we're wrapping up our interview, what exciting plans or initiatives do you have coming up in the next 6 months to a year? I know you've mentioned your book, but what else do you have coming up?
Well, beyond my book, I want to release more books. Something that I've always wanted to do since I was a young age was I wanted to be an author. Initially, that love of writing spanned just being fiction, but I want to release more books helping people actually take their life from where they are to where they want it to be. And on top of releasing more books, I want to release more videos to my YouTube channel, more trainings. I want to release more online courses. And on top of that as well, I want to do more travel in my personal life by myself or with my partner. These are the things that I want to do. I like to keep it simple. In many years before, I had crazy, crazy goals, and I managed to achieve a lot of them. But this year, I want to keep it simple. I want to create more. I want to live more. I want to do more. I want to be more. And that's what I want this year.
I love that. That is a perfect goal for all of us to go forward with. Now, Geoff, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your thoughts and insights. If someone wants to connect more with you, how should they get a hold of you?
You can find me anytime on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. The handle is Geoff Seow Official, so GeoffSeow. On top of this as well, you can visit my online portal via any of the links on these platforms, and you can download yourself one of my free ebooks or check out my online trainings, check out my podcasts, check out my media appearances, whatever it is. Have a look, enjoy yourself. There's many things to go through, many free stuff I have as well, so you can learn a lot about me, and I would love to connect with you if you do go out and find me.
Perfect. All right, go ahead and go out and connect with Geoff on all his social medias. And we thank you so much for all your time today, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's been a pleasure. Much appreciated.
Thanks for tuning into Success in Motion. Want to share your story? Visit successinmotionpodcast.com/guest to apply and be featured on the show.